everybody. Welcome to Women in Retail Talks. I'm Melissa Campanelli, the co-founder of the Women in Retail Leadership Circle. And today I'm delighted to speak to Angie Tebbe, the founder and CEO of Ray Wellness, which is a women's wellness company. So nice to meet you, Angie.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Great. So I'm just going to jump right in. Let's get started. So let's start from the beginning. So tell me a little bit about your background before starting Ray Wellness.
Yeah, so I grew up in a really holistic household. I guess I'll start way back. And my mom was a nurse and my dad was very much into Reiki and homeopathy. And we were this really weird family meditating on the lawn in Fargo, North Dakota, and in a very, very homogenous place. And so, for me, I grew up with such a cellular appreciation of well-being from such a young age. And that'll come back, just a moment into the story. But what was important for me was, seeing the world, understanding, that there was so much out there to see and learn and experience. So I got out of there as fast as I could. And I really did just that, lived around the world, and created for myself a career around corporate America, if you will. And so I ultimately started my career at Microsoft for a couple of years, and then came back to the Midwest in pursuit of other things, and completely fell into retail. So I spent 13 years at Target in the home and apparel space, creating brands from scratch, which is largely in the private label space. That included manufacturing products and managing P&Ls in the billions. And I have to tell you, I loved every moment of it as I continued to learn, spent some time, in Toronto, opening up the Canadian operations. But over time, I started to really see that my well-being continued to decrease on the priority list. And about 2.5 years ago, I started to see a number of signs that caused me to pause. And I had an opportunity at that point to think about what wellness meant to me personally and professionally, and how I could bring that together as potentially my next chapter. I'm a student of what I do. And so I wanted to make sure that I could walk the walk, not just for myself, but I knew a lot of other women were feeling the same way. So I left my corporate career in pursuit of that why, which is really, my view on what well-being should be, and how attainable and accessible that should be for women, and how we should put ourselves on the priority list. But never thinking for 1 minute that would mean creating a company, starting a brand, much less kind of what led us to where we are here today.
Wow, that's great. I didn't realize you had that background. So you must have seen some sort of white space out there when you started the company. Can you kind of talk about what that was, and what did you think how were you able to fill it? Did you think you'd be able to fill it?
It really came from me, taking some time off after I left the corporate world. I just started taking care of myself and in pursuit of my own well-being. And so as I sought to take care of myself, through nutrition and I started running again every day and really fueling myself. I've always believed in supplements. I've always believed that, get your nutrition through food first, but there's no amount of salmon or kale that you can eat that can replenish, what we as women put out on a daily basis. And so I've always believed in the power of supplementation. And as I started to try to fix my own hormones or rebalance my own hormones, I found one of two things. Really, the first for what I wanted, which was this kind of East meets West approach, or, the vitamins and botanicals and adaptogens and herbs that we all need. Nothing existed that was attainable or accessible. And I don't just mean price point. It was, didn't feel welcoming or inclusive to what the world had changed into. And so it really was for the 1%. And then secondly, the supplements that I would go to CVS or, any sort of retailer, what was out there was, one, not made for women specifically, or two, chock full of sugar, and usually in the gummy format. And so I had this idea a few months after, me taking care of myself, and it was to create this holistic wellness company with, pure and powerful and accessible solutions that support women specifically on a number of needs, whether that be sleep, sex, skin, and so much more. And so really, as we think about what this means, we're creating a platform and a company to help people thrive and shine from the inside out. And in doing so, we're standing for well-being for all. And really what that means is it shouldn't have to be a full-time job. We all have, lives to lead. It shouldn't be expensive, and it truly should be welcoming of everyone. And so from day one, it was really, really important that we think about our community, the intersectionality of our community, and how we can best serve her.
Yeah, I loved how when I asked you to describe the company earlier, you said it's basically a women's wellness company. So it's sort of, it's all encompassing. It's almost like wellness is where it starts and then the products come after, as opposed to the other way around. So I really appreciate that. Um, can you talk about a key challenge you faced when you began the company? I'm sure there was some, and how you were able to overcome it.
There were, where to start on this question? First I would say, when you become an entrepreneur, there are challenges and obstacles, and when you have the right mindset, or an entrepreneurial mindset, to me that means, I like to think of myself as top 5% of tenacity, top 5% of folks that just see challenges as redirects rather, and learnings and ways to hone in on your ability to really listen. And so there were so many challenges. The one though that I think a great deal of women with incredible ideas out there are really experiencing right now is fundraising. And as a founder and a CEO, whether it's a side hustle or you're full time, the reality is in 2019, 3% of the capital raised was given to female founded companies. And that was a high watermark. And the dollars raised were less, the valuations were lower, and because of this, they scale slower than male-led startups. And so I think the context of my challenge was that, but additionally, I got almost 100 no's, to be clear. And so as you craft your story and as you think about what mark you can leave in the world as an entrepreneur, creating said new company, it's really, really important to listen and understand where those no's are coming from. And so for me, almost 100 no's, it's like, gosh, is this ever going to happen? Is this idea really that far out, or am I speaking a different language, or what's the feedback coming back, and how do I truly listen and learn from that? But then eventually, you put a new pair of pants on every single day, and you keep going. And once one yes turns into an intro to a friend that turns into another yes. And then really, really quickly, you start to gain momentum. And so I would say that was absolutely the biggest obstacle in starting the company. But with that said, I'm so hopeful. I think change is happening, and the more, venues like this, the more we can talk about it, the more we continue to use our voices, the more momentum we can create, together on that. And the more momentum, our why has always been about not just supporting women's well-being, and well-being of all humans, but really fueling the next generation, right? And so for us, I also had this bigger why of our partnership with Girls Inc., and really fueling the next generation of bold, badass women, and making sure that they kind of get the support they need as they're becoming the next women of the world as well.
Awesome. Well, I love that. 100 no's. I mean, that could be a book right there.
Almost. It was 90 something, not quite 100. We didn't get to 100, but almost.
I mean, that is so inspirational. I mean, sort of going off track for a second. I mean, what kept you going? Like, how did you stay motivated with that? I mean,
it's not easy. When you're so anchored in your why, and that's what I would say, and I have said to a lot of entrepreneurs is, you can create a what and a where and a how for your company. But if you're not really, really clear on the why, and for me, the why and my why is really, how do we bring the right experiences to help women thrive and shine from the inside out. Because let's face it, we're all trying to conquer the world in our own ways. And if we start with women who often are the nucleus of so many things, that radiates outward into their communities. And I knew a lot of women were feeling the way I did, where they're not on the priority list. They have a family at home, a career they're trying to continue because they're so passionate about it, and don't feel great. And so for me, I knew that there were a lot of women out there that needed what we had to bring. And so anchoring in that why, although the what and the how continue to change as we create our, as we continue to scale as a company, that is just so important. And that's what gets you out of bed in the morning after you've had your 80th or 90th no, is being able to retell that story and understanding, that there's something there and somebody will have the same beliefs that you do.
Great. That's so cool. And tell me a little bit more about the Girls Inc. relationship. How did that get started, and how do you work with them?
So, it was always so important from day one that it wasn't just about women, it's about the future generation. Because girls, and I didn't realize to the extent until we started the relationship more deeply with Girls Inc., but girls are going through the same thing women are. They're stressed out, they have a lack of sleep, and thinking through what girls are navigating and the triumphs that they're, experiencing, navigating everything that they are is so important. And so we always had this thought process of, if we support these girls now, when they become women, they'll be obviously better equipped in stress management and that sort of thing. What I will say is, I had to call them a lot too. And so, this is before we had a website, before we had a concept. I'm like, we are building a scalable company. And it's really, really important that we think about, the whole ecosystem of women. And so today it has been such a humbling and important partnership for us, and has helped fuel our why. And they're an organization that you may or may not know that help fuel the next generation by creating the next set of strong, smart, and bold girls, and in turn women of the future. And so they do that through a lot of programming around mind and body. They do that a lot around, creating a second home for a lot of these girls before and after school, and especially through the last year, digitally helping to support what they need. So we've got a deep partnership. It runs deeper than just the financial contribution of 5% of our revenue every day. We're so intertwined on our missions that there's a lot of great things happening.
Great. I love it. I'm going to jump ahead with some of these questions. One is that I know that you started a partnership with Target. I'd love to know how that's going, and are you still in Target? And you must have had some connections there, but I would just love to see how that's going.
Yeah. So first and foremost, we started a digitally native company, because it was important for us to have a one-on-one conversation with our customers and consumers. And so what is so cool about that is there were some retailers that started to take notice pretty quickly after we launched in late 2019. And so we knew, like I always knew, that to create a scalable company, it wouldn't just be digital. It would need to be physical at some point, or with a big partner that's physical and digital, like Target. And in order to be scalable, in order to impact, the million women we did in our first year, as an example, the million customers we had. And so how that came to be was just starting the conversation. And what is so cool about Target is they have such a belief in wellness and well-being. They have such a belief of women. A disproportionate amount of their consumers are women. And putting women at the forefront of that messaging around wellness. And so as we kind of came together, it was a really, really exciting conversation about what could be, how big it could be. So we have now been in Target for 15 months, and we're in both the beauty aisle and the vitamin aisle. And we love them. I mean, we have had such a tremendous experience with them specifically as a partner, and they're really, as you know, kind of kingmakers for emerging brands in terms of awareness. Now, we basically launched, in 2020. And so there was never a before 2020 and an after. And so as you think through the business model or navigating, physical versus digital and consumer behavior through, COVID and quarantine last year, they've just been a tremendous partner to help us understand and for us to help them understand kind of the trends that we're seeing. So really, really great partnership. We're still there, and we're thriving.
Awesome. Love it. I know they do have a lot of great products in Target, I've noticed, owned by women. So that's cool. So let's talk a little bit about leadership. A lot of our listeners love to hear leadership tips and best practices from our guests. So, I mean, what type of a leader are you? Like, how would you describe yourself? And then also, how do you keep your team motivated?
Oh, these are big questions. I'll start with the team motivation piece first, because that is obviously the most important thing. As we bring in humans to the company, it is so important that first they're mission aligned to what we're building, because without that alignment, no one's going to do their best work. And so we kind of over index on the mission and the values that we have. And secondly, we bring in humans that have a really clear point of view on their why. Because in a startup, typically you bring in folks that are very, very much learners and very driven, and that means that they can get burned out. And so to have a personal and professional why and know what's important to them at work and outside of work and getting into the whole human is really, really important. With that said, that's kind of the biggest thing that's top of mind with me, with the team right now is how do you hire these amazing humans, but keep them balanced and keep them well? And how do you create the right system and culture to make sure that they're taking care of themselves? Otherwise, we're not walking the walk as a company. And in the last year, through COVID and through everything going on in the world, mind all of the things that have been happening in everybody's minds and bodies. How do you put that at the forefront? So that is very, very important. And that kind of tells you a little bit about my leadership style. And that is human first, whole human first, and vulnerability first. And so that's been really, really important as we build a company. 2/3 of our team has been hired through quarantine. So there really wasn't a before and after for us. And there's 1/3 of the team that I've never even met in person.
Wow.
And
Wow.
so that vulnerability that I need to make sure I lead with is really important, because if I can't raise my hand and say like, hey, I'm not the right person for this, or I have no idea what you're talking about, or I'm having a really bad day, then that will not kind of put our culture. But it's really important to establish that sense of realness first and foremost, because if we're not showing up as we are as a whole human, that just kind of fights, right? If you're different personally and professionally, it just kind of fights itself. So I lead with the whole human first, and I lead with the why. And I have obviously a little bit of direction in the what, but kind of leave the brilliant humans that we brought to the company to help support the how and what we need to do moving forward.
Great. I love it. So you talked a lot about keeping your team motivated. How do you keep yourself motivated during this time? And what are your goals for the year ahead?
If I think about what success looks like, at the end of the day, for me, it is about, being known as an authentic, courageous, mission-driven human that helps a lot of women feel their best, right, from the inside. And so that's it. And so that inherently motivates me. The other thing that really motivates me is the conversations we're having with our consumers. And it's not just conversations, it's the reciprocal nature of feedback and the engagement that we have with our consumers that has been quite profound. And for us, it's our job, not just to listen, but I would say as a company these days, any company these days, those that I think will do the best job and scale the quickest and win are those that really pay attention it's one thing to listen and take the feedback, but to really pay attention to what they're telling you about what you need to do and what the next steps are, the next unlocks at a company level. That to me is motivating. And we've got a really amazing feedback loop with our consumers. And so, goals for the year is just to keep doing what we're doing. And we've got amazing plans to scale this year, but a lot of that's been fueled directly by our consumer and what they're telling us our next steps should be on their behalf.
Great, I love it. And then just in closing, I always like to kind of ask this question to folks. What would you say is your mission statement, either your professional or personal mission statement? I mean, a lot of what we talked about is your mission, but maybe is there something that you kind of live by or think of when you hear the term mission statement?
Yes, it's to your point, all the things that we've talked about around helping women feel their best. And this is personal and professional. Like I am of 3 girls, right? Like I'm the middle of 3 girls. Like I have always had this believability in women, and my parents made sure that they understood we can, truly conquer the world. And so, to me, it's about that. And that's personal and professional. That's with my community. And that just doesn't mean with women, that means with men too, right? And making sure that everybody is supportive of well-being more holistically, specifically around, how women need to thrive. And so, with that said, professionally, it's also important to make sure that you have a sustainable business model and that, you don't just throw something out into the universe and it's there for a couple of years. It's really important to me that what we're building is sustainable, over time as well.
Great, I love it. Well, it was so great to talk to you. We're out of time, actually. I could talk to you all day, though. This was so interesting, and I love your mission. And I can't wait to hear more about your products and watch your company grow. So, thank you for joining me on this episode of Women in Retail Talks, and also thank you to everyone out there listening. For more information on this podcast, please check out our podcast channel page at womeninretail.com/podcasts for show notes. And Women in Retail Talks is available on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, and Spotify. Also, please make sure to subscribe to our podcast channel page. And if you've enjoyed this episode, please take a few moments to rate it and review it. Thanks, and until next time, this has been Women in Retail Talks.